The victory celebration aboard Grand Admiral Zorath's flagship should have been triumphant. The Battle of Veridia Station was over, the Virin coalition shattered, and Kaltheran dominance secured across the sector. Officers drank ceremonial wine and recounted tactical brilliance that would be studied for generations. Warlord Ayrenna stood before them, still in combat armor scorched from ship-to-ship fighting. By ancient tradition, the warrior who contributed most to victory could claim any prize within reason. Everyone expected territory, perhaps political favor, resources to expand her already considerable power base. "I want a human prisoner," Ayrenna said. "From the Virin camps we liberated. Identification code Delta 779, Marcus Reid." The silence was profound. Admiral Zorath's long ears twitched with confusion. "A human. Warlord, surely there are more valuable." "That is my prize." Her voice carried the authority that had won battles. "By tradition, you cannot refuse." Zorath granted it, obviously bewildered. The room erupted in whispers the moment Ayrenna departed. Some said she planned public execution, a message to potential enemies. Others suggested exotic cruelty, that the legendary warlord had developed dark tastes. No one guessed the truth. Marcus Reid learned he was being moved without explanation. 8 months in Virin captivity had taught him not to ask questions, just survive the next hour, then the next. When Kaltheran soldiers pulled him from the camp, he assumed execution or worse. The transport to Ayrenna's flagship happened in silence. His guards offered no information despite his careful attempts at inquiry. They brought him to quarters that couldn't possibly be meant for a prisoner. Actual windows, furniture that wasn't bolted down, food that tasted like something other than recycled despair. Marcus waited, exhaustion and confusion warring with the hypervigilance months of captivity had burned into his nervous system. When the door opened, he barely recognized her. Warlord Ayrenna's reputation was carved in military victories and enemy casualties. She was imposing in full combat armor. Her long ears swept back in what Marcus had learned indicated deadly serious intent. But when she removed her helmet and looked at him, something in her expression didn't match the legends. She dismissed her guards, spoke a single word. Marcus. Not his designation. His actual name pronounced with careful precision. And suddenly he remembered where he'd seen her before, though it seemed impossible. 12 years ago. Before the wars. Before he was a prisoner and she was a warlord. When they were both very different people. "Nexus Station," Marcus said slowly, his voice rough from disuse. "The Institute archives. You were studying ancient peace treaties. And you were researching comparative linguistics." Ayrenna sat across from him, keeping careful distance. Trying to prove understanding could prevent conflict. The memories came flooding back. They'd met in those archives, 2 idealistic students from different species, both dreaming of futures where their peoples worked together instead of preparing for inevitable war. They'd spent months together, talking about peace, about bridges between worlds, about naive beliefs that would be tested and shattered by reality. "The night before I received my conscription orders," Ayrenna continued, "we made a promise." Marcus remembered. They'd been young and foolish and terrified of the coming storm. "If we survived," he said quietly, "if we ever found each other again, we'd remember who we were before the galaxy forced us to become something else." "I never forgot." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. "When I saw your name on the prisoner roster from Veridia, I knew immediately what I had to do." Marcus looked at this woman who'd become a legend written in enemy casualties. "How many people have you killed to get here?" The question was cruel, but he needed to know if the person he remembered still existed. "Too many." Ayrenna didn't flinch from the truth. "I became exactly what my people needed to survive. Ruthless, efficient, everything I swore I'd never be." She met his eyes. "But I'm still the person who made you that promise, even if I've done terrible things to keep myself alive long enough to honor it." "Why?" Marcus's voice cracked. Why claim me as your prize? Why not just let me fade into whatever happens to prisoners after war's end? Because that promise is the only thing I've done in 12 years that didn't require someone dying. Her composure finally broke. I needed to know if I could still be that person, even for a moment, even if you hate what I've become. Marcus thought about the idealistic young woman in the archives and the warlord sitting before him, about who he'd been before captivity taught him that hope was a liability. I don't know if either of us can go back to who we were, he admitted. No, Ayrenna agreed. But maybe we can find our way to someone we don't hate. News that Ayrenna claimed a human prisoner out of sentiment spread through her command structure like wildfire. Commander Vekran, her longtime rival, seized the opportunity. Personal attachments compromise strategic judgment, he argued before Admiral Zorath. The warlord shows weakness that endangers Kaltheran's security. The prisoner should be eliminated. The formal inquiry called Marcus to testify. Months of captivity had taught him that powerful people noticing you rarely ended well. But when asked about his relationship with Ayrenna, he told the truth. They'd been friends before the war, united by belief that conflict could be avoided through understanding. He described the person she was, the dreams they shared, and admitted he didn't know if that person still existed beneath the armor. Then he surprised himself. But if she can remember friendship across a decade of war, Marcus said carefully, maybe there's hope for peace that doesn't require total annihilation. If the legendary Warlord Ayrenna can honor an old promise even after everything she's seen, maybe we're not all beyond saving. It was naive, the kind of thing the younger Marcus would have said, but it resonated with officers tired of endless conflict. Admiral Zorath made his ruling. Ayrenna acted within her rights. Marcus would remain under her protection as civilian consultant, not prisoner. Political compromise that satisfied no one but prevented immediate crisis. Later, in the privacy of her quarters, Ayrenna admitted she didn't know how to be the person she was before. War changed me fundamentally, she said. I've made decisions that haunt me, sacrificed principles I held sacred, became someone my younger self wouldn't recognize. Marcus confessed his own transformation, captivity breaking something in him, replacing hope with survival instinct. But talking with you, he admitted, remembering who we both were, makes me want to believe change is possible. They made a new promise, try to find their way back, or at least toward people they could respect. Months passed. Marcus became unofficial advisor on human Kaltheran relations. Ayrenna pushed for diplomatic solutions where possible, earning criticism, but also grudging respect. They worked together on post-conflict reconstruction proposals, channeling old idealism into practical frameworks. Not the future either imagined 12 years ago, but something. When new threats emerged requiring desperate alliances, Marcus and Ayrenna found themselves at the center of negotiations between former enemies who barely trusted each other. During a session deteriorating into accusations, Marcus spoke about their promise. About two naive kids who believed understanding could prevent war, who made each other promise to remember kindness. We both failed that promise, he admitted to assembled leaders from 6 species. But the promise itself, the belief that people from different worlds could care about each other's survival, is worth more than tactical advantage. Ayrenna supported him publicly, acknowledging that her greatest victory wasn't any battle but finding courage to honor a promise that made her vulnerable. The alliance formed, not through trust, but through recognition that some things matter more than old grudges. Years later, after the crisis passed, Ayrenna retired from military service. She'd done enough fighting for several lifetimes. Marcus joined her, establishing the Nexus Institute's revival, a research center preventing conflicts through cultural understanding. The dream they shared before the galaxy burned. They were older now, scarred by experiences that couldn't be erased. No longer idealistic kids who made promises in archives, but sitting in the new Institute's library, Watching young scholars from a dozen species work together, they realized they'd kept the promise after all. Not by staying unchanged, by refusing to let war destroy the part of themselves that believed in something better. "Do you regret claiming me as your prize?" Marcus asked. Ayrenna's answer was immediate. "It was the only victory that mattered. The only thing I took from the war that made me more rather than less." Sometimes the greatest prize isn't territory or power. Sometimes it's finding your way back to a promise made before the world taught you to stop believing in promises.